Hello everyone and welcome to another excellent game from the Uzbekistan Chess Cup. Nodirbek Abdusattorov with white versus Alexander Grischuk. It's been a while since we've featured Sasha on the channel. It was last year in in August during the World Team Championship. He played against Danil Dubov. And, well, let's just say many pieces were sacrificed in that game. If you haven't seen it or don't know what I'm talking about, it will be the first link in the description below. Might be a good watch even before this video. If not, you could check it out later. But yeah, Nodirbek definitely trying to win the tournament. Grischuk not doing so well, but it will be the battle of Nodirbeks because in the final round, or rather before the final round, both Nodirbek Yakubov and Nodirbek Abdusattorov are on 5 points out of 8. So we'll see what happens. But this is a very nice game. It features such a nice and calm pause the video moment. You will have to awaken or even summon your inner Capablanca to solve this one, because this for this one it's not about complicating, it's about simplifying. So you see what I mean by this. It's truly a positional masterclass. So let's check it out. Nodirbek with white opens with pawn to e4. And you guys, I know you don't need time here to know that Grischuk is in time trouble. Grischuk played half of this game with 1 minute on the clock. But Grischuk plays like that every game, regardless of the time format. If he plays bullet, a minute is enough for him. If he plays a classical, 2 hours on the clock, 3 hours, doesn't matter. He always lets it run down to 1 minute and then he plays chess. So he's just that kind of a player. So e4, we have pawn to e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. The Italian game is on the board. Bishop to c5, the Giuoco Piano, and now pawn to c3. Nodirbek already deviates from the main line. Knight to f6, we have d3 and castles kingside. We have knight b to d2, pawn to d6, and pawn to b4. So it's all very standard stuff, nothing new here. They're blitzing this side. You can see that there maybe a few minutes have been wasted. We have pawn to a4, preparing pawn to a5, so pawn to a5 by Alexander, b5 chasing away the knight, knight to e7, and Nodirbek castles. We have knight to g6, and now striking in the center with pawn to d4. And it seems that Grischuk prepared well for this game, because earlier this year, and it happened on 29th of February, so that's a very, very rare day. I'm sure you guys are aware of that. Nodirbek defeated none other than David Navara in the Prague Chess Festival, but Navara played e captures on d4. But here we have bishop to g4, and it is now, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. So it's, like I said, it's impossible for me to say whether or not Grischuk actually knows about this game, because he has spent already half an hour on the clock. But I'm pretty sure Grischuk is just that kind of a player. Even if he knows what he will play, he might still think about it for like 10 or 20 minutes or even an hour. He just plays like that. But yeah, here, this is basically where our game starts. And now comes queen to c2. The e4 pawn is defended. You've unpinned from the bishop. Also, you can't really capture here. The knight covers that, so everything perfectly fine. And queen to d7. Look at Grischuk's time, an hour, and he spends 15 minutes on queen to d7. And okay, it's not a problem. We have rook to e1, and now rook f to e8. He spends another 10 minutes. So now it's an hour and 13 minutes for Nodirbek and 36 minutes for Alexander. We have bishop to b2. A lot of pawns here in the middle of the board, but open positions in the Giuoco Piano have a tendency to open up even more. We have knight to f4, preparing to put pressure on that g2 pawn. Also bringing the queen into the attack would be very nice with some bishop to h5, queen to g4 action. So Nodirbek spots that, and he just brings the bishop back. Bishop to f1. He wants his g2 pawn nicely defended. Bishop to h5, and he even plays h3, stopping the queen from infiltrating. And the bishop on f1 also stops any nasty sacrifices like knight captures on h3. Okay, rook a to d8. Sasha continues development, and king to h2. Adding even more protection to the h3 pawn. We have pawn to h6, and now pawn to g3, kicking away the knight. So now the pawn is nicely defended. The knight has to go back. Knight to e6, and now bishop to g2. We have knight to g5, attacking the knight on f3, and now knight captures on g5, h captures, and knight to c4. Okay, the pressure is on the bishop on b6, and you can't really play bishop to a7 as the pawn on a5 would hang. So that's the problem. Every move now, Sasha will have to calculate knight captures on b6, and that's very, very annoying. E captures on d4, we have C captures on d4, and bishop to g6, putting pressure on that e4 pawn. And rook 8 to d1. Nodirbek also completes his development. And now pawn to g4 by Sasha. And you can see that he's already below 1 minute on the clock. It's only move 23. Nodirbek's with 25 minutes on the clock. And there are many moves to consider here. Do you go... there are even some tricky ideas like knight to e5, attacking the queen and the bishop. Because if you capture, then you capture, and an attack opens up towards the black queen, and then the knight hangs. So that's a possibility. Okay, you can't really play e5, the queen would hang. You could play pawn to d5, you could capture the bishop first. Nodirbek goes for pawn to d5. You can see how all of a sudden this diagonal opens up. And really, this game is nothing more than a story of the quality of pieces, and not just any pieces, the quality of the two bishops. So this game is the story of the two bishops. This bishop, a true monster, a true dragon, and this bishop, well, much like you guys, an observer of this game. So let's see what happens. G captures on h3. Of course, Sasha's idea is that if Nodirbek recaptures, then knight to g4 check comes, and after the king moves, he will play bishop captures on f2. And this is just not that great for Nodirbek. He will have to give up his queen, and then after bishop captures on d7, recapturing the queen, knight captures on d1, bishop captures on e8, knight captures on b2, and now a nice bishop captures on f7 check to equalize the capture fest. King captures on f7, knight captures on b2, and it's equal material, bishop versus knight. Okay, it would probably fizzle out to a draw fairly quickly. But Nodirbek says, nope, I like this variation, only I don't like it with your bishop on b6. So he plays knight captures on b6. Okay, C captures on b6, and now bishop captures on h3. Attacking Sasha's queen, queen to e7, and now queen to c3. Of course, you go after the g7 pawn, and not a lot of good squares for this knight. You can't bring the knight to e8. You can bring it to h5 to defend the g7 pawn, but the g4 is coming, so that doesn't really do anything. So how can Sasha play this? Okay, queen to f8, getting the queen to defend the g7 pawn. Now the knight can move, and also he's preparing rook to c8. So here, pawn to f3, also adding more defense to the e4 pawn, and knight to d7. The knight has now been activated. The knight can come to c5 or e5. But Nodirbek plays bishop captures on d7. Of course, you don't allow this knight to block that queen, or even block the queen on e5. So bishop captures on d7. Yes, it's a strong bishop, but this knight could turn into a real nightmare. So rook captures on d7, and now pawn to g4. And now what I've said about this bishop is, I mean, that is not a piece, that is an observer. That's much like you guys just watching what will happen this game. And Nodirbek's bishop, a true monster, just a spectacular piece. You have to guard against checkmate at all times, and if you want to have any activity, it means you will have to play f6 and weaken your position further. So okay, rook to c8. Nodirbek says, oh, okay, I'm still keeping this diagonal, queen to d4, and now rook d to c7, doubling up on the c file. And this is what I meant in the beginning of the video when I said it's you know, a Capablanca type position. Summon your inner Capablanca. Feel free to pause the video and solve the position. Win the game for Nodirbek while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on being able to simplify the most wild of positions. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook to c1. If you've decided to improve your position with king to g3 first, that's also fine. But, you know, then you allow rook to c2, and it becomes unnecessarily complicated. Rook to c1, that's how Capablanca would do it. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have found this as well. The idea is that if we trade off all of the rooks, if we get rid of the rooks from the board, then we are left with queens and with the two bishops, with this bishop, the observer bishop, and with this bishop, the mighty dragon bishop. So, you know, it doesn't take a lot of consideration to figure out who's in a better spot here. So you could trade, you don't have to trade, but if you don't capture, of course, Nodirbek will capture. So Sasha did. Rook captures on c1, rook captures, and rook captures on c1. We have bishop captures on c1, and now queen to c8, putting pressure on the bishop, also preparing queen to c2 c2 check, but it doesn't matter. Now you see, okay, if that king was on g3 like we discussed, you wouldn't even have to worry about queen to c2 check, but queen to c2 check is not a problem, and Nodirbek just brings the bishop back, bishop to b2. And yes, if you check king g3, you have to play f6 to stop checkmate. So he plays it right away, and now pawn to g5. Also one of the reasons why Nodirbek put the pawn on g4, he wanted to have this ready. We have king to f7, there's no stopping the capture, and now g captures on f6. We have queen to h8 with check, king to g3, and now g captures on f6, where the queen also helps out with the defense of the pawn. But now Sasha's pawn structure has been decimated, and Nodirbek just continues collecting. Queen captures on b6. We have queen to b8 defending this pawn, but now just queen captures on a5. We have bishop to h5, and now king to f2, and he was in this position on move 41 that Alexander Grischuk resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. There's no real way to threaten anything here. Whatever you play, let's say you go king e8, queen to c3, you have this pawn defended, you're threatening the f6 pawn, the a5, a6 will just create a pass pawn on the queen side. There are so many problems with this position for black that I don't think he would play it even with 10 hours on the clock, let alone with what did he have, a minute on the clock. So yeah, brilliant masterclass by Nodirbek. Grischuk had that weird bishop on g6, and Nodirbek, he saw a clear path to victory. Just trade everything, leave our superior bishop to Grischuk's observer bishop, and that was all that was needed. So great stuff. And like I said, going into the final round, both Nodirbeks are on 5 out of 8, and it will be decided in the final round. I can check who the opponents are. I think Yakubov is playing Yu Yang Yi, but I will check. Just give me a second. Yeah, Yakubov has white against Yu Yang Yi, and Nodirbek has white against Alexei Sarana. So it's hard to say who has the tougher challenge. In rating, they're pretty similar. Yu Yang Yi is 27-15, Alexei Sarana is 27-12, but I would maybe consider Yu Yang Yi still the stronger opponent. I don't know why, I just would. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Both Nodirbeks have a chance of winning the tournament. I will keep you guys informed, and that's it. I mean, I really enjoyed this game. It's such, it's so, I feel so dumb just watching this game. How a player like Nodirbek can make chess look so simple. It was just brilliant game. And yeah, if you haven't seen that game I've discussed, Grischuk versus Dubo, first link in the description below. So also, give it a watch. Some fancy pieces were sacrificed there. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank William Cooper, Shangu, Derek King, E.K. McAllister, and Eric Keith McAllister for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. Really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And luckily, no camera funny business this video. See you soon.